Chapter 2. Rustbrook didn't feel stronger. It felt like it was bracing for something worse. The caravan appeared anyway. Dust rose in thick plumes, marking the arrival of allies. Or another problem. Silas stood at the edge of Rustbrook, flanked by Thomas and Elder Miriam. They watched in silence as the caravan rolled through the gate. No one relaxed. The caravan carried reinforcements from Old Pruce Lookout. Not just supplies. Whether it was enough, or already too late, no one said. Work slowed. Eyes followed the newcomers. No one expected good news. A broad-shouldered man with a jagged scar across his cheek dismounted and strode forward. Rustbrook's defenders tracked him instantly. Name's Garrick. He offered his hand. Heard you could use help. His gaze moved over the walls. Looks like you still can. Silas clasped his hand. Silas. Welcome to Rustbrook. Garrick took it in. The walls. The towers. The people. Measuring how long they'd last. Looks like you've been busy. Thomas gave a dry chuckle. No choice. The raiders forced our hand. A beat. They'll force it again. Garrick nodded once. We're here now. Supplies came in. Not enough. Not even close. Elder Miriam stepped forward, directing distribution with quiet authority. Make sure every family gets what they need. No hoarding. No wasting. We don't get a second chance. Silas and Garrick moved through the village. Rustbrook was hardening. Into something built for siege. Whether they were ready or not. Children carried water. Tools passed from hand to hand. No one spoke. They understood enough. Rustbrook barely had time to adjust. Another group arrived. Silas watched from the barricades. Survivors. Soldiers. Engineers. Worn. But not broken. A tall woman stepped forward. Controlled. Certain. Collar. No hesitation. We're here to help. Silas nodded. We'll take it. Calla took it in. The walls. The towers. The people. Assessing. Behind her, an older man stepped forward, tool belt hanging at his side. His hands were rough. Used to fixing things that were already breaking. Harland. Engineering. His eyes moved over the barricades. You needed it yesterday. More than you know, Silas said. Harland gestured. His engineers moved immediately. Testing. Measuring. Finding weaknesses. The soldiers moved differently. Not villagers. Not anymore. Thomas integrated them without hesitation. Rotations. Positions. Move. Calla joined Silas and Garrick. Already seeing what they missed. These won't hold, she said. You need alarms. Trip wires. Flares. Garrick nodded. Show us. Calla unrolled a map. Here. 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 Weak points. They'll hit these first. Silas leaned in. How soon? We're already behind, Harland said. They didn't have a choice. None of them did. They're holding, Calla said. A beat. For now. They have to be, Silas answered. Or they don't make it. Rustbrook had been vulnerable. Now it was becoming something harder. Something that might survive. Or break differently. Rustbrook moved faster. Not everyone trusted it. Whispers followed the newcomers. Villagers watched. Not welcoming. Not trusting. Trapper stood among them. Still. It had kept him alive. Not buying it, he muttered. Not this fast. He folded his arms. Watching the walls go up. Silas stepped in. Trapper. We need this. See it yourself. Trapper hesitated. Then nodded. Fine. But I trust my own eyes. They moved through the village. The defenses stood. Some didn't. Trapper stopped. Pointed. That won't hold. A beat. Not through a second wave. The structure shifted in the wind. Too easy. We'll reinforce it, Silas said. Trapper didn't answer. Further along, a half-dug trench. Abandoned. They'll just slow the dying. That was the problem. That's why we need them, Silas said. They see what we don't. Trapper said nothing. They kept moving. Every weak point. Every mistake. Metal struck wood. Sparks. Work that mattered. If they had time. An opening. Unprotected. Too obvious. They won't miss it, Trapper said. They circled back. Silas exhaled. They had made progress. Not enough. Not even close. You see it? Silas asked. We're improving. Trapper looked out over the workers. For a long moment. Nothing. Then. We'll see. It wasn't trust. But it wasn't rejection either. For now. It was enough. Maps and notes covered the table. Too many plans. Not enough time. Silas, Calla, Thomas, and Miriam gathered. No one liked this. Harland tapped the map. Outpost. Old military site. Forgotten. If the rumors are true. It changes everything. If it's still there. What kind of tech? Calla asked. Power. Eyes. Defense. If it still works. How far? Silas asked. Half a day. A beat. One way. You really think it's still there? Thomas asked. We keep patching holes, we die slower, Harland said. We need something real. If it's real, Miriam said, it changes everything. Or ends it faster. Silas nodded. Small team. Fast. Quiet. No mistakes. I'm going, Calla said. 2 engineers. We need someone who knows the terrain, Silas added. He didn't hesitate. Trapper. Firelight flickered. Trapper sharpened his blade. There's an outpost, Silas said. Trapper paused. Military tech. We need you. Silence. Then. Fine. A beat. But I'm watching them. Fair enough, Silas said. Dawn would come fast. So would the risks. Orianthe lounged in her cell. Relaxed. Watching. Calculating. Outside, recruits prepared. For something they didn't understand. A smirk formed. She had seen this before. Silas saw it. That was the problem. Enjoying this? He asked. She said nothing. Let it stretch. On purpose. Watching you repeat it, she said. A beat. Every mistake. I've seen this before. Settlements like yours. They all think they're different. They never are. What would you do differently? Silas asked. Fraction X thrives on predictability. They know your moves. Because they wrote them. Silas clenched his fists. She wasn't wrong. That was the problem. Then tell me, he said. She smiled. You're not ready. Silas stepped closer. Didn't look away. What would you do differently? He needed the answer. She hesitated. For the first time. You're too focused on defense, she said. They don't defend. They strike. They adapt. They disappear. They're already gone. Silas felt it. She was right. And how do we change that? Be unpredictable. Take risks. Break your patterns. A beat. Know when to fight. And when to run. The words stayed. Heavy. Too many doubts. Too fast. Silas. Thomas called after him. Urgent. Silas turned. We're not done, he said. Orianthe just watched. Something had shifted. And it wasn't going back. The door opened. Calla stepped in. You're still reacting. They won't hit where you expect. You've been watching, Calla said. You've been repeating, Orianthe replied. You reinforce weak points. I remove them. And then they become unknown. Unknown to you, Orianthe said. Not to them. Silas felt it again. That shift. She's pushing you to abandon structure, Calla said. Structure gets people killed, Orianthe replied. Silence. Heavy. Two paths. Neither safe. Silas said nothing. That was the problem. Thomas nodded. I'll organize the village. Guards. Rotations. Miriam added. I'll reach the others. We can't stand alone. Silas looked around. Broken. Tired. Still standing. We start now. They moved. Together. Rustbrook had made its choice. Fight. Or disappear. Silas stepped out of the cell. Orianthe's words followed him. You're too predictable. Still there. The training yard was alive. Noise. Movement. They held weapons wrong. But they held them anyway. Calla corrected them. Fast. Precise. It's a start, she said. Not enough. We'll get there, Silas said. If they had any time left. Trapper watched. Not convinced. It has to work, Silas said. Trapper didn't answer. We'll see. Nearby, a group watched. Not working. Just watching. They blame us, Garrick said. We need unity, Miriam said. Or we break. Silas clenched his jaw. 2 battles. Already losing one. Sweat. Strain. No one stopped. It was defiance. Defiance wouldn't win this. Not against raiders. Not against fear. Against what was coming. Silas knew the battle was coming. But the real question. Would Rustbrook survive itself? Long enough to fight? Under the waning light, the air pulsed with the relentless clang of hammers, the hiss of grinding metal, and the steady rhythm of saws biting into wood. Rustbrook's gates were changing. A line of workers, their faces streaked with dirt and sweat, moved like a living machine, each knowing their role, each pushing past exhaustion. Harlan stood among a gathering of villagers, his sharp eyes scanning a growing pile of wooden stakes. The logs, honed to vicious points, lay stacked beside him like teeth waiting to be bared. He ran his fingers along the edge of one, testing its sharpness before giving a curt nod. These need to be perfect, he said, holding one up for emphasis. First line of defense. Beside him, an older man with calloused hands worked with deliberate precision, chipping away at the wood with a practiced efficiency. Never thought I'd see the day we'd need this, he muttered. Not against men. The chisel slipped. He swore under his breath. Didn't look up. Harland let out a low breath. None of us did. Yet here they were. A short distance away, sparks flew, lighting up the dusk as molten steel met weathered wood. Calla oversaw the welding crews, her sharp gaze scanning the metal plates being fused onto the gates. Smooth it, she snapped. One flaw and it fails. A young welder, face obscured behind a protective mask, gave a silent nod, guiding the torch with expert hands. The plates sank into the wood. The gate groaned. Wood strained against steel. For a second, too long, it sounded like it might give. Then it held. Stronger. Heavier. Forced. Thomas rose to his full height, taking it all in. The stakes bristled along the edge of the village, jagged spears promising a fight. The gates, now plated in steel, stood heavier, stronger. The tripwires coiled in the grass, waiting. Rustbrook wasn't just defending itself. It was preparing for war. Silas approached, his expression set in stone. How's it looking? He asked, his voice low. Thomas exhaled. It'll hold. A beat. For a while. If they come tonight. A pause. But there's still much to do. Silas swept his gaze over the workers, faces weary, bodies aching, but hands never stopping. They weren't warriors. But they were becoming something close. "We'll be ready," Silas murmured. He didn't believe it. Thomas didn't reply. He didn't need to. They both knew the truth. Rustbrook had no other choice. And neither did the people inside it. They watched in silence. The village changing. Not fast enough. Not ready. Never ready. "Keep them moving," Silas said. Thomas nodded. No hesitation. Because stopping meant thinking. The dawn light bled pale over the landscape as Silas, Trapper, and their small team closed in on the abandoned military outpost. Time had not been kind. Something about it pressed in. Too quiet. Too still. Crumbled walls. Overgrown paths. Rusted metal. Nature had reclaimed the ruins, vines threading through shattered concrete, grass pushing up through fractured asphalt. Silas raised a fist, signaling the group to halt. "Stay sharp," Silas said. "Something's off." Trapper, ever cautious, took point, his rifle poised. The others fanned out, moving in silent precision, their boots crunching softly against debris. Calla stayed close to Silas, her sharp gaze flicking to every shadow, every broken doorway. They moved forward, ghosts among ruins. Every step carried. The wind howled softly through shattered windows, carrying the faint scent of rust and decay. Silas's pulse thudded as they reached what looked like an old storage facility. Inside, metal shelves leaned against cracked walls, their contents left to time and dust. Trapper motioned to a dust-caked crate, and Nolan moved in, prying it open with careful force. The lid gave with a groan. Inside lay a cache of pre-collapse tech, handheld radios, weapon parts, stacks of ammunition. "Jackpot," Nolan whispered. No one smiled. A grin breaking through his usual seriousness. Silas felt a flicker of hope, but caution held it at bay. Hope like this always costs something. "Load up what you can carry," he ordered, his voice low but firm. "We don't have time to waste." As the team gathered supplies, a sharp intake of breath from Calla froze them in place. "Silas," she called softly, her voice tight. Not fear. Worse. Recognition. He was at her side in seconds, peering past her into the adjacent room. And his stomach clenched. The campfire still smoldered. Embers breathing red. Not dying. Waiting. Someone had been here minutes ago. Footprints, fresh ones, cut through the dust. "They're close," Trapper muttered, his grip tightening around his rifle. Silas felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Had they been watched this entire time? Were they still being watched? Or brought here? "Stay alert," he ordered, his voice steady despite the unease creeping up his spine. "Get what we need, and let's move." In one corner of the ruins, Harland grunted, prying something loose from beneath a mound of collapsed rubble. He lifted it into the dim light, his eyes narrowing. A damaged mech power cell. Even in its broken state, it hummed faintly, still alive. Harland's expression darkened, then shifted to something closer to excitement. "This is still live," Harland said. A faint hum answered him. "If it blows, it takes half the street with it. A beat. Or we use it first." Silas nodded sharply. "We take it." No more delays. They had stayed too long already. Gear laden and thoughts churning, the group pressed onward, heading in the direction of Rustbrook. But the outpost wasn't empty. Not completely. And as they slipped into the trees, something in the ruins moved. Not chasing. Not rushing. Waiting. They hadn't just been watched. They had been allowed to leave. Days passed. The village hardened. Too fast. The wooden stakes encircling the perimeter had been reinforced, their sharpened tips a deadly promise to anyone who dared approach. Metal plates lined weak points, forming a patchwork, while hidden tripwires wove a quiet, lethal trap beneath the dirt. Above it all, watchtowers loomed, tall, sturdy, and manned around the clock. Villagers and ex-soldiers alike took shifts, waiting for the attack. Silas walked through the village, his boots crunching against the dirt-packed ground, his eyes sweeping over the transformation. Too fast. They were skipping steps. That's how things broke. Children hurried past, carrying water for workers, elders stirred bubbling pots over communal fires, and every able-bodied villager found a role in the grand effort. No one asked anymore. Even Trapper, once a skeptic, barked orders now, his voice sharp with purpose. Like he needed it. Harland supervised a group of engineers, their hands carefully adjusting the positioning of solar-powered floodlights. They won't see a thing coming in, Harland said, wiping sweat from his brow. Silas nodded. Good work. We need every advantage we can get. Calla approached then, her expression serious. We've integrated the mech power cell into our alarm system. It'll give us a heads up if anyone tries sneaking past the perimeter. Silas exhaled slowly. Their defenses were shaping into something formidable. And yet, a shadow loomed over their progress. One he had let inside. Orianthe. Though she remained behind the bars of her cell, her presence stretched beyond the jailhouse walls. From the dark, she spoke. Quiet. Certain. Names. Patterns. Weak points. People started listening. One at first. Then two. Then groups. Night after night. No orders. Just drift. Silas saw it happening. And did nothing. One evening, Silas rounded a corner near the jailhouse and halted mid-step. Through the dim light, he spotted Thomas. He stood close to Orianthe's cell, speaking in hushed tones. Silas's stomach tightened. They fell silent when they saw him. Thomas turned first, guilt flashing briefly across his face. Silas, he said, clearing his throat. Orianthe leaned against the wall, that ever-present smirk tugging at her lips. Here to join us. Silas ignored her and leveled his gaze at Thomas. What were you discussing? Thomas hesitated. She has ideas about fortifying our food storage, he admitted. Making it less obvious to attackers. Silas folded his arms, tension building in his chest. He wanted to argue. To remind Thomas exactly who Orianthe was, what she represented. But her suggestions, damn it, they were working. And that made it worse. His frown deepened. We'll discuss it later. Thomas nodded stiffly before walking off. Now, alone again, Orianthe and Silas stood in quiet opposition. She watched him, her gaze sharp, assessing. You can't deny it, she said, her voice soft but edged with satisfaction. Silas's jaw tensed. Deny what? Orianthe's smirk widened, her tone like silk over steel. That I'm the reason this place still stands. A beat. You built walls. I gave them purpose. Silas didn't respond right away. Because he knew she wasn't wrong. And that was the problem. He turned and walked away, but her voice followed him, lingering like smoke in the night. And as he moved through the village, the walls fortified, the people hardened, he felt it. Rustbrook was stronger than ever. And weaker for it. Not breaking. Bending. Quietly. Toward her.